Well, I don't think that China is picking a fight.
It's one country, one system now, isn't it? But it was a cover-up, wasn't
no,
it?
no, you
right
are right.
From the start. And the cover-up goes right through your system, doesn't it? China is riling the West, and Europe, along with the US and many countries, is pushing back hard. At issue, a growing list of human rights concerns, including Hong Kong's new security law. My guest this week from Beijing is Wang Huiyao, a government advisor who heads the think tank, the Center for China and Globalisation. Why is his country picking so many fights these days, and where are they all leading? Dr. Wang Huiyao, welcome to Conflict Zone.
Thank you.
Europe's getting fed up with Beijing's threatening behaviour, telling politicians here where they can go and who they can talk to, telling the Nobel Prize Committee who it can award and who it can't. What made your government think it could push Europe around like this?
Well, that's a first time for me to hear that, but I don't think that that was the government position, or there could be a misunderstanding, or maybe there's a lack of communication or whatever. I heard from you. I don't hear anything from that here in China. I don't think so.
Well, perhaps you don't hear about it in China, but just days ago, the German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas told Beijing bluntly to stop threatening Europe after a senior Czech politician had gone to Taiwan and addressed its parliament. Your government had warned he'd pay a heavy price for his visit there. That's bullying, isn't it?
No, I don't think that was really probably understood in a right way. I think that one China policy has been upheld and has been really maintained for the last 40, 50 years, and also it's the basis of China established diplomatic ties with all the countries that have a diplomatic relation with China. So I think country probably should really safeguard this one China policy and not having those official high-level visits. So I think it's I can understand that China is not happy, and they maybe they speak maybe reflect that unsatisfaction. So I hope that this is not going to be interpreted as a China threat or anything. So that is probably different interpretations.
Well, Dr. Wang, you may not like Western politicians visiting Taiwan or Chinese nationals being awarded Nobel Prizes, but that's your problem, isn't it? I mean, these repeated attempts to impose your own prejudices and insecurities onto the international community aren't really doing you any good at all, are you? It's counterproductive.
Well, I think that probably, if a country has set up diplomatic ties with China, I'm sure they've gone through the diplomatic established relation talks, and they have actually already abide by certain principles and guidance. So if they recognize one China policy, and then that one China policy does not also reflect the official contact between the other country and Taiwan, and that should really be respected. I think so. If certain countries doing that, China certainly has a right to express their opinions as well. I think that China just expressed its unsatisfaction and its opinion. So I think that should not be interpreted any more than that.
Well, if you intended a strong reaction, from the European Union, you got it, because its foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell, called your government expansionist, authoritarian, and a new empire that undermines international law. Did you really want to pick a fight with your largest export market?
Well, I don't think that China is picking a fight with China's largest market. No, I mean, it's probably both market for both regions as well. And as I said, there are certain guidelines and principles when countries establish diplomatic ties, and recognize one China policy, and that should not be violated or breached. And if that is happen, and China certainly have a right to protest and to give its dissatisfaction and also its comment. I think that's fair. That's not expansionist.
Perhaps you're just too sensitive about free speech and free contacts because you don't exactly have a lot of it in China yourself, do you?
As we are non-government think tank, we don't understand a lot of probably government policy. So we speak from a non-government private think tank point of view.
But
so
you are a government advisor.
Okay
you are listed on your own Facebook page as a government advisor. You advise the government.
Yeah, we do advise. My think tank does advices too, of course. But we are not government. We are not government officials. We advising. Think tank does advise people, of course, but we are not government. So I'm not a government spokesperson. So if I from our think tank understanding, I can explain, but some I don't know. I cannot satisfy you, of course.
So are you telling me you're surprised at the kind of language that China uses these days when it's dealing with the West and dealing with other countries? I mean, we have examples like your embassy in Venezuela told those who talked about the China virus, they told them to put on a face mask and shut up. Is that the kind of diplomatic language you think is a good idea for China to use these days?
Well, the situation you've been describing, some of them I haven't heard before, but I think that maybe there's a contest, or China is also under a lot of attacks, and so I think we should really have a dialogue. We should have communication, visiting. I certainly think that this pandemic has stopped people-to-people exchanges and stopped many visits, and also many exchanges between China and the outside world. So that's very unfortunate, and I hope that is, we should overcome that when pandemic is under control. I think the government is doing its best, and also we see that officials is visiting some countries to conduct exchanges, dialogue, which is great. I mean, we need that.
Your foreign minister came to Europe and he warned again last month about the consequences of giving awards to Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement. If you're complaining about coercive diplomacy from Washington on Europe, then you try practicing the same coercive diplomacy on Europe. That's hypocrisy, isn't it?
I think there could be some misunderstanding. I think on the issue of Hong Kong, I certainly think that the Hong Kong young people have some legitimate concern of the widening big gap between rich and poor and things like that. So I think the Chinese government has realized that. So they launched this Great Bay project. So there are many policies issued, so the young people can come to Great Bay in Guangdong area to have work, to have a study, to settle down there. So many issues has been noticed in addressing that. But on the other hand, I don't think we need a chaotic Hong Kong where airports is blocked and bystander will put on the gasolines and Legislative Council was stormed and smashed. Shops
yes, but
or
Dr.
vandalized.
Dr. Wang, what do you expect? What do you expect when China has been whittling away at the territory's freedoms for some time now? We've seen a crackdown on the people who led protests in 2014. We saw booksellers kidnapped and turning up strangely on the mainland because you didn't like the books that they were selling. And now this new security law, which has been condemned by many countries around the world, as well as UN human rights expert. Fact is, this new law violates both the letter and the spirit of the basic law in Hong Kong, and it was brought in without any consultation. So Beijing now rules by diktat in Hong Kong. That is why people are upset in Hong Kong.
Well, I can understand the situation, but I think the Hong Kong also need stability and also order and the law, of course. And the central government, of course, according to the basic law, they have the right for defense, diplomacy, and security. And all the countries has a security law, and China is no exception. So I think that you can see now the Hong Kong stock market is back. and they are now prepared for the largest IPO in the world. All the investment are back to Hong Kong, and Hong Kong is getting business is back to normal gradually. So I think that people will understand in the long run it's going to be really good for Hong Kong if we have this peace and the prosperity and the security return back to China, to Hong Kong, of course. But of course, there's always people wants more objectives, wants more, accomplish more. But it takes time, gradually. I mean, when British ruled Hong Kong for 100 years, they never gave them any democracy. So you can't expect that, very soon with China, of course. But I think
Dr. Wang, you haven't given Hong Kong stability with this new security law. You've simply imposed a dictatorship and a police state. The UN human rights experts who've just written to your government aren't buying this stability argument. What worries them, in their words, is the curtailment of freedoms of expression, peaceful assembly and association, and the interference with the ability of civil society organizations to perform their lawful function. And we've already seen that happening, haven't we? You talk about stability being coming back to Hong Kong and healthy markets. Since the new law came in, dozens of key pro-democracy figures have been detained, including 2 lawmakers. That's not stability. That's a police state that you've imposed.
Well, you certainly has your interpretations, but I think that basically, even what happened in the U.S., even President Trump would not allow any violence or any vandalizations or disorder. So of course, China is not perfect. There's no any perfect policy, but probably China was forced to, because China has to maintain stability and the law and the order there, and so that all the multinationals companies can come back and is not running away. Stock market can be rebuilt and confidence can return. The largest IPO in the world can happen. There's nothing is perfect, of course, but
this is a long way from perfect. This is a long way from perfect, Dr. Wang, isn't it? I mean, we've seen police raiding.
But even the U.S.
We've seen police raiding. We're not talking about the U.S. We're talking about Hong Kong here and Beijing's attitude to Hong Kong. And we've seen fundamental freedoms turned into crimes by this new security law, which you've introduced. And the rest of the world, did you think they wouldn't notice? We had a joint statement last month from the governments of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, UK, US, saying the law was eroding Hong Kong's fundamental rights and liberties. And your answer to that is, well, nothing's perfect, but the markets are doing well.
Well, what I'm saying is that Hong Kong, as a part of China, as one country, 2 system, they need also.
It's one country, one system now, isn't it?
And well, let me finish. I mean, you keep interrupting me. What I'm saying is that Hong Kong needs stability and, of course, law as well, because Hong Kong cannot be, for the last 12, 6, 7, 8, 9 months. I mean, during the last year, Hong Kong is basically dysfunctional and is paralyzed and been airport blocked. People would put on the oils to burn, on the bystanders, and the legislature was stopped. No country in the world would allow that, and there's no people. I have a lot of friends tell me that they don't feel secure in Hong Kong anymore.
I think
the government doing something.
Did you think, Dr. Wang, that the people of Hong Kong would simply sit by and watch their freedoms erode and being eroded by Beijing and not do anything about it? Did you really think that? Then you miscalculated badly.
No, I think that you have. There are certainly people in Hong Kong, have different opinions. Of course, that is obvious. But also you have to really think that when this new national security law established, there's almost 3 million Hong Kongers, voted in favor of this law. So that is also a fact that we should not neglect. But let the time speak for itself. Let the market speak for itself. Let the people's final acceptance for it speak for itself. I think we shouldn't, there's only several 2 or 3 months from this law, but let's take a longer view. As you said, we can see the long, in fact.
Well, we see what that longer view. We've already seen what that longer view is going to look like, because as I pointed out, dozens of pro-democracy figures have been detained. Not only that, but police have raided the offices of Apple Daily, one of the few news outlets that Beijing doesn't control. The paper's founder, Jimmy Lai, was arrested together with 8 other men. He was later released on bail, but the damage is already being done. Freedoms are being torn up. The basic law is being torn up. And you're having your new security law superimposed on top of it. So we can see which way it is going, and people don't like that. And if you think that the rest of the world is going to sit by and just praise the markets, you seem to have miscalculated, don't you? Because that's not the attitude of the rest of the world.
Well,
it's caused a lot of damage to China's reputation.
Well, there was no perfect solutions. Definitely, I think that the priority is to maintain the law and order and also the security. I think after all, Hong Kong, we're having no huge casualties or life being lost in Hong Kong, even for this whole year demonstration and the violence going on. So I think the governor was quite reserved on that. And what we see at the U.S., I mean, we already have a quite number of casualties already. So I think we have to really take into consideration that this is one country, 2 system is a new system. Nobody does it before. Nobody has done it before. It's always have a lot of trial and touching the stone, crossing the river, as Deng Xiaoping said. So we have to improving this process. But I think my priority is we need to bring Hong Kong back to order.
Yeah, you're improving the process by arresting pro-democracy figures. Trust in China, as I mentioned a little while ago, is plummeting despite what's seen as your growing influence. A survey by the Bertelsmann Foundation showed that in the 4 months up to May this year, negative views of China had increased in several countries by double digits. A clear majority now in the US, France, and Germany now have adverse views about China's rise, the highest figure being 61% in Germany. Did you want your country to be so unpopular around the world?
I think that's a problem, that the perception of China outside China is negative, and it's getting more negative now. But I think on the part of both China and the outside world, I think we really need to increase the communication. For example, China is doing quite well on all those KPI in terms of, if you measure the countries. China became the 2nd largest economy in 4 decades. China embraced the globalization. China is the largest trading nation with 130 countries.
Yeah,
China
and
contributes
China is not
30% of China GDP growth. And China is also lifting 800 million people out of poverty, cutting 70% of the world poverty level. So they have contributed enormously to the world. But I think we need to really explain that well, and then probably we need to have a better look at China. Because I think also the world, the Western country need a bit more tolerance of China. If China is doing well, like Deng Xiaoping said, it doesn't matter, it's a white cat, black cat, as long as it catches mice. If they contribute to the 1/3 of the world GDP growth, China, never become, conquer any, continent or countries, or sending troops to other countries, or fighting in the last 4 decades.
Dr. Wang, you call for more tolerance.
For example,
you call for more tolerance.
I have to finish that. No, but also,
tolerance of what?
The world,
tolerance of 1 million Uyghurs locked up in so-called re-education camps. Tolerance of persecution of Christians. Is that the kind of tolerance that you're looking for from the outside world?
No, I don't think you interpret that right. I think the tolerant China has a different development model, have a different path, have a different system. Because it was saying, oh, China didn't converge. China can't be. We need a more diversity of this world. We can't just all become
This is repression.
one type of,
We're not talking about converging or diverging. The world is complaining about your human rights record continually, and the locking up, the incarceration of 1 million Uyghurs in Xinjiang province. This is what they're complaining about.
Well, I think
because
that
this
was
is
never,
repression.
as far as I can see, there's no hard evidence or proof or credible data to say that. I mean,
there is
because China will suffer
data.
from.
It's been published around the world, and Chinese instructions to the people who staff these incarceration camps. It's been printed.
No,
Dr.
I don't
Wang.
think so.
It's been published abroad.
I don't.
You don't read the Western
newspapers. No, I mean there's a white paper published by the Chinese government. They were saying all the people in this education school has been graduated already, and and also to prevent 5-10 years ago Xinjiang was plagued by the terrorist attack. So many hundreds of thousands of lives were lost.
Dr. Wang, perhaps you'd agree that one of the main causes of the rest of the world losing trust in China was your handling of the coronavirus outbreak in Wuhan at the beginning of the year, and the shocking way in which local officials in Wuhan tried to silence the one doctor who sounded the alarm. I wonder what it says about your society that when officials of the Communist Party are faced with bad news, their first response is to try to cover it up. That tactic lost both you and the rest of the world valuable time in dealing with this pandemic, didn't it?
I don't understand what you seem to have all the very negative questions, but what I try to answer is that I think that the COVID-19 when they first discovered in Wuhan, the Chinese authority has reported that to the WHO, has reported that to the United States and all the other countries. Of course, there are doctors that who also find the disease at the very beginning. But this is a disease never happened in the history of mankind. Nobody knows about that. And then you should not send a false alarm as well. You should really be proven and tested and also verified by an expert that is really a deadly lethal disease. And if that is actually, once that they reach that point, when they come to the conclusion, they immediately shut down a 10 million people city. They immediately shut down 60 million Hubei province. They actually, at China now is doing the best. And there's no single case occurring locally on a daily basis now for the last month or two. So China
yes,
probably is doing the right job.
Dr. Wang, you ignore the fact that Dr. Li Wenlian, when he first talked about the emergence of a viral outbreak, he was called in to the police, to the Public Security Bureau, accused of making false statement that had severely disturbed the social order. And he was handed a letter which read, "We solemnly warn you, if you keep being stubborn with such impertinence and continue this illegal activity, you'll be brought to justice. Do you understand?" He had to write, "I do," underneath that.
Yeah, no, I understand. You're right.
This is what happened. This is what happened. It was a cover-up,
No,
right
you're right.
From the start. And the cover-up goes right through your system, doesn't it?
You have your interpretations, but what I see is actually, the officer who talked to Dr. Li Wenliang has been sacked, has been punished, and there's a number of officials. The party secretary has been resigned, the hospital chief has resigned. There's a number of cases has been handled by the local government. I think there could be local officials somewhere that didn't want to tell the bad news. Maybe Dr. Li had some initial pressures, but later on, I think when the government realized this is a deadly disease, they waste no time to issue the warnings, to lock down the cities, which is never done so in the history of mankind, to have a 60 million province locked down for 2-3 months. So they pay their price. They have also experimented all the ways of how to contain and combat this disease, quarantine, social distance, and massive testing, and they experiment all this methodology, and now it's widely practiced internationally. So I think China should give some credit for fighting this.
Yes, but given the initial cover-ups, and we have a U.S. intelligence report in June saying that even as senior politicians in Beijing were scrambling to get accurate data from officials, local officials, they themselves still played a role in obscuring the outbreak by keeping information back from the World Health Organization. So I ask you, will we ever discover the real truth about what Beijing knew and when it knew it? Will we ever discover that?
Well, we at the think tank level, we don't know all the details, but what we've seen, from our angle, from our think tank point to look at this, the cases in Wuhan is only very initially. I mean, probably a week or two, they were a little bit, find out the real cause of the disease, and then really to make a right announcement to the world. At the beginning, nobody knows this is deadly, this is going to be a pandemic, this is going to sweep the world. Nobody knows about that. So they have to be careful in claiming it's such a deadly disease. So I think at the beginning, there's a little hesitation, a little contemplating. I can understand that. But once they have all the doctors have proved that this is a deadly disease, they waste no time to lock down the whole city and shut down all the flights and did all the things, right things.
All right.
So I mean, you can't expect everything's perfect. Yeah.
Dr. Wang Huiyao, we're run out of time. Thank you very much for being on Conflict Zone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.